So those were the theoretical questions that psychologists were asking about defining attitudes. We're more interested in the measurement. There was some agreement. The psychologists used questionnaires administered to individuals and that were subject to variation and quantification. In the boom times of the 1920s and 30s, new journals in psychology published an array of these kinds of measures. One early example was an attempt to measure social group distance. How much were individuals drawn to or repelled by other social groups? Emery Bogardus in 1925 produced a social distance measure, which I'm going to quote at some length because it's relevant to how modern survey questions develop. His question was, on the basis of your first feeling or reaction, how would you respond to a group, and then he would name some group, Russians, Italians, Irish, mostly nationality groups in this first study, but using a 7-point nearness to farness scale. So, for example, how would you respond to close kinship by marriage, to having a member of the group in my club as personal chums, on my street as neighbors, in employment, in my occupation? How about citizenship in my country, as visitors only to my country, or would you exclude the group altogether from the country? Bogardus regarded this as simply a logical ordering, so rejection of, say, option 4 would also imply rejection of options 1 through 3 as well. In that sense, Bogardus believed his scale was ordered and represented a continuum from most tolerant to least tolerant. Stuart Dodd in the mid-30s had a similar but also interesting scale. Asking about nationality groups, he said, he offered the options: if I wanted to marry, I would marry one of them. I would be willing to have one of them as a guest in my home for a meal. I prefer to have one merely as an acquaintance to whom one talks on meeting in the street. I do not enjoy the companionship of these people. And at the most extreme, I wish someone would kill all these individuals. We might not go with quite such a strong wording these days, but that effort to scale opinions is certainly still typical of modern survey research. Another major figure in the development of attitude scaling was Louis Thurstone. In 1928, he developed a measure of attitudes towards religion. In this, he gave a number of statements and asked people to agree or disagree. So, for example, I believe church membership is almost essential to living life at its best. Or, I believe in what the church teaches, but with mental reservations. And finally, I think the church is a parasite on society. Now, Thurstone developed over 130 original items like this, and then reduced them through statistical analysis to 45 statements that formed a battery of questions to measure attitudes towards religion. Some followers of Thurstone reduced it to a mere 20 questions. But the virtue of this sort of measurement is that it's not sensitive to the rank ordering of choices, and items can be added or dropped without changing the meaning of the remaining items. That's very unlike a rank order measure in which you simply express your order of a variety of statements. Yet another contributor to this early measurement approach was Rensis Likert. In 1932, he developed what is called the Likert scale that's quite familiar to even today. From his early studies, a question was phrased, an American committing a crime in Shanghai should be tried by a Chinese judge. Do you strongly agree? Strongly agree? Agree? Are you undecided? Do you disagree? Or do you strongly disagree? In modern days, we see this in the ubiquitous, do you approve or disapprove of the job Barack Obama is doing as president? With the options strongly approve, approve, undecided, disapprove, and strongly disapprove. And so the so-called Likert scale provides an ordering of a measure of approval or agreement which is easily administered and captures a respondent's reaction to some object. We're going to take a short break here at the end of this part of the lecture and come back for the next part, the development of political science at the University of Chicago.